Hey everybody, I have read your reflective exercise one assignment today and have given you feedback. This being a two-part exercise, you had your Word document as well as your PowerPoint. Most of my comments on your Word document are going to be in notated highlight sections or the little post-it notes. Your PowerPoint slides are not going to have any comments on it. The current in-text grading tool we use does not really lend itself to commenting on PowerPoint slides so well. So you're going to get feedback about those in the rubric. So just read your paper for feedback and then look on the rubric for feedback about your PowerPoint and touch base with any questions. This is an assignment that I think is super interesting to really, for me as your course professor, to read. It's so interesting to look at your course introductions where you're telling everyone who you are, and I jot down notes about where your practice areas are. It's really cool for me to look and see where your practice area is and how you're experiencing innovation in your own practice. It's also interesting for me to read the perspectives of innovation. Those of you that have been a nurse for 20 plus years, your yardstick for innovation is very different than someone that's still a novice nurse that's been practicing less than 5 years. Their experiences are different, so their perspectives of what innovation is are different than those of us that are old nurses. Someone was starting off talking about their paper charting. I think several of you may have actually mentioned it. And I get kind of sentimental when I think about the good old days of those heavy plastic charts that you flip through and had those color-coded tabs and everything was neat and orderly. It was tangible. You could walk around with your charts. You looked like you were doing something meaningful when you were piled up with charts around you. I have horrible spelling and horrible handwriting, so trust me when I tell you that the process of charting was no fun. But I do remember thinking about, how much easier I thought it was at the time, and not understanding the implications of what practice risks were involved in charting, and you guys delineated those really well. Several of you talked about the electronic health record, so going from paper charting to electronic health records, looking at physician order entry. What did that look like for your practices? Several of you did a really cool thing of looking at process improvements that really didn't financially cost your organization anything in the implementation of it, but was an innovative idea, whether it was implementing protocols at the bedside that allowed nurses to start a standard of care because of an emergent issue, the looks at the organization of how you organized your patients and how they were coordinated through the handling of care. A few of you talked about telehealth, which is another really cool one. If you live in a rural area or an area that has, for some reason, an inaccessible specialty area, that's a huge, huge thing. The idea of being seen by a physician through a computer is just really cool, much less all of the technological components of the computer that now you can have the patient pick up a microphone and hold it to their chest, and the doctor can hear heart sounds, do automatic vital signs. There's just so much that we can do with technology. So telehealth was another really cool one. An early warning sign system to help you gauge issues with obstetric patients was another interesting one. There was another one that was about gathering data on supply management. So going into your supply closets and gathering information about the use and maintaining a par level and tracking the use of what is being used. Just so many ideas. So just know that this is just the beginning, that when we think about where we are today isn't where we were yesterday, that incrementally things are changing. When we look at change from a historical standpoint, we often think that healthcare and nursing is intentional and it's changing. And that's not true. Nursing is historically known to change by drift, which means that we find ourselves in a different place and don't really have a meaningful way or explanation of how we got there. We followed other people's leads. We followed organizational pull. But we as a practice, as a professional practice, aren't intentional about our change. We don't sit down and have a strategic plan in place that helps us think about, where do I want my department to be 5 years from now? And how does that align with my organizational strategic mission and vision and philosophy and their own business plan? We change by drift, and I would love to see us as a profession be more intentional and thoughtful about our change and use innovation as a real key to open doors. I think we're, as Christian nurse leaders, we're biblically called to embrace innovation and embrace change. If you think about the greatest innovator, our Heavenly Father created the entire universe in 7 days. I know it took me a year to stop missing my paper charts. I'm in awe of his creativity and his openness to change. One of your classmates did a really good job of putting that biblical context in change. Your classmate Frederick wrote, Jesus gave us several parables which seemed quite applicable to healthcare transformation when telling his disciples. No one tears a piece out of a new garment to patch an old one. Otherwise, they will have torn the new garment, and the patch from the new will not match the old. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No new wine must be poured onto new wineskins, and no one, after drinking old wine, wants the new, for they say, the old is better. And Fred reminds us that we find that in Luke chapter 5, verses 36 through 39. He goes on to say, as healthcare and nursing leaders, we must understand that the profession of nursing is not the profession that it was yesterday or even today. If we continue to patch together our professional gaps, that we are missing the very point of Jesus' teaching. Instead, nursing must continually adapt and make new nursing programs for new professional nurses to meet many healthcare challenges of our present day. Only in doing so will we be able to participate as partners in shaping the professional quality healthcare for the days to come. I think Fred is exactly on point. When we are intentional about continually growing, then we're more intentional about our change. We're not changing by drift. And we can be considered serious professional partners at the table with our colleagues. I think Frederick did a really nice job reminding us of those key topics. APA-wise, you guys are in great shape. Something I do want to see you do, make sure you're using meaningful titles for your papers. A reflective exercise number 1, that tells you the assignment. It tells me nothing about the content of your paper. Remember, when we publish papers, when we publish posters, people are going to want to walk by and at a glance know what's in that paper, know what's involved in that poster. So you want a meaningful title. It's also how things are archived in journals. It's how you are engaged or tied into databases. So you want to get into the habit of thinking, what is my title here? I will write my paper and then go back and add the title because I want it to be meaningful about what it is. So be thoughtful about that. The other thing to make sure that you understand, with any article that's considered scholarly and peer-reviewed, there should be a DOI. If you're unable to find the DOI, there is a reference tool that's under additional information in Blackboard. It's called Crossref. You can highlight the name of your article and the author, drop it into Crossref and click Submit, and it will find a DOI if one exists. It's a great tool. I may actually add that to this email just so you have it as a quick hyperlink. Know that if you can't find a DOI for your article, you want to backtrack and make sure you're really using a scholarly source and a recent source. Things that have been published in the last 10 years almost all have a DOI. That doesn't mean that you won't find a good source that doesn't have one, but that's a zebra, not a horse. So if you're not finding a DOI, just double check it. Use crossref.org to just fact check it before you use that abbreviated URL from the search engine. Okay, I think those are all my notes from today. Oh, your PowerPoints. You're going to do a voiceover PowerPoint as part of your assignment for your quality project part 2. So read the feedback that was provided for you from this PowerPoint and plan to make those meaningful changes in part 2. Part 2 needs to have the voiceover component of you talking through how your innovative solutions to your quality issue are going to be addressed. But the PowerPoint itself needs to be aesthetic. It needs to be well organized. It needs to be properly supported using in-text citations on your slide, as well as meaningful graphs and artwork and charts, so that the aesthetics of it pull in and connect your content. So sometimes the hardest part is pulling those slides together and making them look crisp and making them meaningful. So just plan your time accordingly and make sure that you listen to that feedback that was provided for any changes. I'm going to talk real briefly about next week. Next week, you've got 2 assignments. The first one is your practicum log. Make sure you go into 623 and review the feedback that was provided to write your logs. You want to be sure that you have covered all sections and that you've covered them thoroughly. And remember that the idea with your practicum log is that you are connecting your practicum experiences with your stated goals and objectives, that you're reflecting on them and you're thinking about the meaning of what has happened in the supportive narrative section. And then the bottom section that has your application section, there you're going to connect with the ANA scopes and standards for nurse leaders and explain how those are evident in the experiences that you've had. So make sure that you go back in, look at the feedback that's been provided, and be intentional about concisely writing about your details and then supporting them with reflections and the connection to the ANA scope and standards, as well as your own goals and objectives. Know that your time log, that duration column, that whatever's in there needs to match the log that you submit. If the hours or the dates are not in alignment, you're going to get an email from me asking you to correct that. So just make sure that whatever you've put in the time log for this log that is in that duration column, if there's 3 days on there, there needs to be 3 days on your log. So make sure that they match up. Reflective exercise 2, the big thing with this assignment is before you start writing, really spend some time looking at or reflecting on significant conflicts that have occurred in your workplace. It would also be helpful if you go into, let's see, where is it? I think it's Porter O'Grady on page 242, and this is in your instructions. Go in and read the 10 stages of conflict resolution process. Do that before you start writing the paper and settle on a conflict. You're going to find this paper easier to write if you know what those 10 stages are. And then you can reflect on a significant professional conflict that you've had and write about it. And folks, know that very rarely are all 10 steps going to be followed, even if a conflict has been really well managed organizationally. It's okay that not everything is being addressed, but you do need to talk about what steps have been addressed and thoughts about why the other steps weren't addressed or how they may have been addressed. Just be thorough in that. The other thing to bear in mind with this assignment is because of the complexity of it, you're going to use level 1, level 2 headings. You may use level 3 depending on how granular you get or how detailed you get. If the use of headings, if you're struggling with that, you need to holler at me. There's information on APA in your Blackboard. Sorry, lost it there. Know that that's out there. I can't remember if I sent you the sample APA paper that we have online. I'll see if I've not already done that. I may send that as well. I need to write myself a note. Okay. I think I have rambled on enough. Let me know how you are. If you have any questions or concerns about anything about next week, use the Ask the Professor link for the generic kinds of questions. Anything specific to your experience or your grade, I want you to send me an email. I'm happy to chat by phone or exchange emails to resolve any concerns you have. Know that I'm here. Know that I'm praying for you. If your life is anything like mine, as the spring starts to evolve, things start to get a little bit busier than I'd like them to be. So make sure you're taking care of yourself, that you're spending some time refilling your well, and that you're maintaining your sleep and your exercise and your nutrition, and that you're loving on somebody that will love you back. I'm here. Touch base if you need anything. Take care.